right, we're back, and it's Labor Day. Happy Monday, everyone. It's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm here, and I hope you were able to enjoy some of that great weather we had on this Labor Day and at the end of the Canfield Fair. And by the way, if you stopped by the WFMJ tent and said hi to either myself or any of our WFMJ on-air personalities over the last few days, thank you. I met a lot of great people over the weekend at the fairgrounds, some people I had run into before in person and some new faces as well. A lot of people came up to me and said, hey, love weather for Weather Geeks. I watch you all the time on YouTube, and thanks to everyone who stopped by and let me know that you are seeing these videos and appreciate them as well. We are putting a lid on meteorological summer. June, July, and August ended up being a warmer than average season, not by a big margin. This isn't going to be a memorable, I should say, summer temperature-wise. We finished at 1.3 above the average for the season as a whole. Now, compared to the average, June was the hottest month, and August the least hot month, if you will. Now, overall, I kind of talked about this a little bit last week on Weather for Weather Geeks. It was not as hot of a summer as I thought it would be, and we're not alone in that. It was most long-range forecasts suggested that we had quite a hot summer in store for the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and the heat had a hard time being centered over those locations for several reasons, one of which is La Nina did not come on this summer quite as fast as expected, and that definitely changed the outcome a little bit in terms of our temperatures. But it was kind of a return to form, if you will, after a cooler than average summer last year. We got back in the neighborhood we were in 2022 and also 2019. It was not quite as hot this summer as 2020, 2021, but we got back above the average, as has been the case more often than not, of course, in recent years. In terms of precipitation for meteorological summer, June, July, and August, here's our viewing area, roughly right about here, and we were all pretty close to or below the average precipitation-wise. It was a pretty dry summer, but boy, it's a lot worse the farther south you go. The deficits are much more impressive down in southeast Ohio, the panhandle of West Virginia. I was just at my parents' house over the last few days, visiting a little bit over the weekend, and their grass is much, much drier down in Tuscarawas County around New Philadelphia along Interstate 77. So it's a lot worse, I think, just barely to our south and west. But even so, a lot of yards have gotten pretty brown and crunchy at times during summer around the Mahoning and Shenango valleys. Now we are into meteorological autumn, the months of September, October, November, and this, of course, is a transitional month, and the changes can occur rapidly as we get into this season. We go from an average high of 79 on September 1st to 44 at the end of November. So yeah, things are about to change in a hurry as we lose more and more daylight over the next few months. Now, September, as we kick off meteorological autumn, has been a warmer than average month very frequently of late. When we look back over the last several, 2020 was the one that was just about average, but every other September going back to 2015 has been warmer than the average, and by a fair margin, especially during that stretch from 2015 to 2019. This September, I think, will more resemble the last few Septembers. In other words, not quite as warm as some of those Septembers last decade, but it'll probably end up being a fairly typical September, give or take a little bit, in terms of our temperatures. Now, for the season as a whole, the months of September, October, November, we think the best odds in the temperature department are for it to be near to somewhat warmer than the average, kind of like the summer season. Now, of course, this is a 3-month forecast, and there's going to be changes at times. There's going to be cooler days, there's going to be warmer days. I kind of think, and we'll talk about this more in just a second, that October could be the month that is warmer than the average by the biggest margin, and November could be the opposite of that. In terms of precipitation, I do think September is going to shake out to be a pretty dry month compared to the average. We will probably have more frequent chances for rain later in the fall season. The season as a whole, I put it about 35% chance that it's drier than average and about a 25% chance that it's wetter than the average, with the most likely outcome it being somewhere in the middle, pretty close to the average. Now, the one thing that can be a wild card or a monkey wrench when it comes to this autumn's forecast in terms of precipitation would be some sort of remnants of a tropical system. And you know how those go. We might see a few inches worth of rain all in one shot from some sort of decaying tropical system moving through, and that's just not something we can predict with any sort of lead time. So barring any tropical malfeasance, I don't expect this autumn to be especially wet, and probably not super dry, although odds favor it being a little drier than the average as opposed to a little wetter than the average. Bottom line for the autumn season, it should shake out as unremarkable temperature-wise, with a fairly typical September, perhaps a warmer than average October, and perhaps a cooler than average November. November is a bit of a wild card. In our analog years that we think are most similar to this year, there were some cool Novembers, there were some warm Novembers. We think this November may end up being more like some of the cooler ones that we've had in our past years that we think bear a lot of similarities to this year. And again, in terms of precipitation, drier than average season is where we probably end up more than likely than a wetter than average season. All right, sign that the seasons are changing. We don't have a frost risk anytime real soon around here, but not far to our east. These are notoriously cold spots in northern Pennsylvania, north of I-80, up towards the New York border, Bradford, PA. There's some locations in here that are notoriously cold because this is a fairly sparsely populated rural area, forested area. These places, can be some of the coldest locations in the region when we have cold nights in the fall, the winter, and the spring season. And so it's no surprise that the season's first frost advisory has been issued for some of those locations out to our east, a couple or a few hours away. Here in the Mahoning and Shenango Valleys, low temperatures tonight will probably drop below 50 everywhere, and we might even flirt with 40 in some of the coldest spots. I don't think we'll see 30s anywhere, but I could see a 41 showing up on someone's thermometer in some of the colder spots. Some of the usual locations around Salem, that tends to be a cold spot. Some of the valley locations down in southeastern Columbiana County, they can be pretty cold. So it's going to be one of those nights. And, you're going to need a jacket if you're out first thing tomorrow morning. Back to work, back to school Tuesday after the long holiday weekend. That big blue H, high pressure, is right overhead, and it's just going to be a fantastic afternoon. In fact, we're going to blitz through Futurecast because there's just not much to show you over the next few days. Wall-to-wall sunshine for Wednesday and for Thursday. Now, we do have a big change coming at the end of the week and into the weekend. It's going to warm up into the 80s Thursday and especially into Friday. It'll be a pretty toasty day Friday. Most of the day rain-free, but towards the end of the day Friday, maybe some showers push in. I think the rain's more likely after sunset into the overnight. Probably a pretty soggy Friday night into Saturday morning. Now, we think the lion's share of Saturday's rain is in the morning with a drying trend as we get into the afternoon. But check out the temperatures over the weekend. Yikes. No warmer than 65 Saturday and Sunday. I think Sunday is likely to be a dry day, but some rain is pretty likely, I think, Saturday, especially during the first half of the day. Now, as we go into the longer range, we're going to hang on to the cooler than average temperatures probably through next Monday. It's a 3 or 4 day cool shot that's coming. After that, this outlook covers September 10th through the 16th. Pretty neutral looking map, but I do think some of these warmer anomalies will start pushing in by days 10, 11, 12, and beyond. I don't think we'll see a repeat of the cool that we have coming this coming weekend. I don't think we'll see a repeat of that anytime real soon. So we're not slipping right into October or anything like that. I've gotten some questions about closing pools. Is it that time? If I were a pool owner, I'm not. But if I were, I would probably close it because while we do have some warm days ahead, like Thursday and Friday, it'll be in the lower 80s. I think we're done with the upper 80s and lower 90s for daytime highs as we go into September this year. That'll do it for me on Weather for Weather Geeks on this Labor Day evening. Thanks again for watching, everyone. Really appreciate it. I'll see you back here on Tuesday for more geeky stuff just like this.